What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics. Today we got a reaction to the Alice Cooper Band. Their album, $1 Billion Babies, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Carl. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below, the Patreon link on the end screen. We could not do it without him. Carl has blessed us with going through the entire Alice Cooper Band discography, not when Alice goes off on his own. So this is the 6th studio album, and from a lot of what I read, the most highly acclaimed. So far, Love It to Death and Killer have stood out for me, but all those reviews are up. There's a playlist for Alice Cooper. Go check that out. All right, this is the 6th studio album, released in March of 1973 by Warner Brothers, of course. The album became the best-selling Alice Cooper record at the time of its release, hitting #1 on the album charts in the U.S. and U.K. So they really built it up. School's Out, the previous year, did really well. Love It to Death and Killer were both in 1971, and so I think that quality of those really brought them up to the forefront. Songs were recorded in Connecticut and London, England. Lyrics cover topics and themes such as necrophilia, we'll get to all of these, dental fear, horror, and sexual harassment. At 41 minutes, almost, it's the longest studio album the band has ever released. This is not counting any of Cooper's solo albums. If you watch this channel, I love these short albums, man. Drummer Neil Smith has said that the album can be traced back to the song Caught in a Dream from the album Love It to Death. The first recording sessions for the album took place in Greenwich, Connecticut, in a mansion called the Galaxy Estate. To achieve certain vocal sounds and echoes, microphones were run through the rooms of various sizes and through a greenhouse. Other sessions were held at Morgan Studios in London, where singer Donovan contributed to the album by singing on his title track. The album was produced by Bob Ezrin, with Jerry Lyon as assistant in New York, Connecticut, and London. 3 additional guitarists were retained to cover for Buxton, who suffered from alcohol abuse-related pancreatitis throughout the sessions and was really in and out of this thing and wasn't in there a lot. The album's title comes from the fact that the 5 members of the Alice Cooper Band were surprised about their success. Cooper said, "How could we, this band that 2 years ago was living in the Chambers Brothers' basement in Watts, be the #1 band in the world with people throwing money at us?" End quote. The title also was later used as the name of the group Neil Smith, Dennis Dunaway, and Michael Bruce formed after Alice Cooper Group had split up. Cooper said, quote, "The whole idea behind the $1 Billion Babies album was exploiting the idea that people do have sick perversions, so be forewarned," right? Alice Cooper wrote the majority of the album's lyrics, cited Chuck Berry as a key influence on his writing. Berry was my favorite lyricist. When I first heard something like Nadine or Maybelline, I understood those songs told a story. As the lyrics went along, you really got a picture of what was going on. He took the girl out, he couldn't get his seatbelt off, things like that. I always wanted to write 3-minute stories that were funny, or maybe not just funny, but also dramatic. The idea was to compact everything into 3 minutes, which is really hard to do, and it is, and that's why some songs meander for way longer than they need to. After the album was released, the band embarked on a tour which broke the United States box office records previously held by the Rolling Stones and included a scheduled 64 concerts in 59 cities in 90 days. Here's where we get into the problem, so to speak. The gross revenue of the tour was anticipated to be close to $20 million. So just a little, gross revenue, $20 million. But only about $4 million was achieved. Why? Because Alice wanted those theatrics, right? He wanted this concert and the stage show to be tremendous. He hired magician James Randi to design effects for the show, and Randi traveled with the tour to supervise and coordinate the effects. He even played a role on the stage as the executioner. The live performances featured Alice wearing a costume with fake blood stains at the crotch, tearing apart baby dolls, attacking mannequins, and being decapitated by a guillotine. Cooper said that the mutilation of the dolls symbolized child neglect. Between 40 and 50 people were employed and 26,000 pounds of equipment were used. In preparation for the tour, 2 semi-trucks carried a wide variety of props, including a dentist drill, 4 whips, a surgical table, 6 hatchets, 33,000 program books, 300 baby dolls, 22,000 sparklers, 58 mannequins, 280 spare light bulbs, 1,000 patches, 6,000 mirror parts, 14 bubble machines, 28 gallons of bubble juice, and 250,000 packages of bubble bath. Is any of that true? Who knows? I just found it in the research. Somebody might have just wrote this out last week and made it up. Who knows? David Byrne of Talking Heads has said that this album inspired him to write the song Psycho Killer, one of their best songs. $1 Billion Babies is the 2nd most represented album in Alice Cooper's live sets, behind only Welcome to My Nightmare. So if you've never been on this before, the music will not be in the videos, but it'll be at a Vimeo link below. And before we get started, we'll mention the concert issues and not having the money was one of the things that started to really cause issues with the band because Alice wanted all those theatrics and some of the band members didn't necessarily want that. So we still got one more album after this, but most of what I've read has said this is the album. And a lot of people have loved it to death and Killer. So, all right, let's start it out with the title track, an interesting way to start this album out. Hello, Hooray. Written by Canadian singer-songwriter Rolf Kemp and first recorded by Judy Collins in 1968. His most famous rendition was, of course, Alice Cooper Band, 35 in the US, 6 in the UK, charted in several other countries, and appeared in the film X-Men Days of Future Past. The band wanted their version of the song to sound like, quote, Alice Cooper meets Cabaret. Steve Hunter, one of the great guitarists sitting in on this one, is playing pedal steel. So, yeah, just an interesting way to start an album. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Carl. Hello, Hooray. And that song was really good. I thought the arrangement was fantastic. I thought Alice's vocals were great. I mean, that was really, really good. I don't have a whole lot more to say to it. Diverse arrangement in there, right? It wasn't hard going, man. It was melodic, and I realized they didn't write it. But kudos to them for like hearing this song going, you know what, I'm going to take on this Judy Collins song. Not only am I going to take it on, and we're at the peak of our success. They were the highest point of success after School's Out that they've ever been. I'm going to make this the opening track on the album, so that's awesome. Now we'll go to a much more controversial song written by Alice Cooper and Michael Bruce, Raped and Freezing. I won't get into the lyrical content. I know what it is because I researched it out, but I'll get into it afterwards, but let's check it out. All right, Raped and Freezing. Great guitar work on here. It's a pop song. Alice sounds good. The story is telling, raped and freezing, so he's chased through the Mexico desert. I don't think it's about the girl. He picks up this girl and thinks it's going to turn out for him. I think she turns on him and he's the one running through the desert. So I think that takes a little bit of the heat off of the lyrics. I don't know, man. I mean, I know nowadays people would freak out. I mean, it's 1973, and I think because he turned it and it was him that was running away. I don't know. But, I mean, it was a catchy song. It was well put together. Next up, we have Elected, written by everybody in the group. I'll just put it that way. Lead single reached 26 during election week on the charts in the US, number 4 in the UK. The song is a reworked version of their debut single, Reflected, from their album of 1969, Pretty's for You. According to Alice Cooper, Joey Ramone acknowledges similarities between Elected and the Ramones' I Want to Be Sedated, so I'll be listening for that. I only know one song off this album. I don't know any of these others unless I'm going to hear this and know it. All right, Elected. I liked it. I didn't love it. It's more of the theatrical song. Alice wasn't trying to sound great. I mean, the shouting Elected was good. And, the other parts coming in with the spoken word. I mean, it's a very well constructed song. I didn't dislike it or anything, but I definitely didn't know it. And so we have the title track written by Cooper, Bruce, and Reggie Benson. It's a duet between Alice Cooper and, of course, the aforementioned Donovan, who provides a falsetto and high harmony vocals. All right, the title track, $1 Billion Babies. It's an exaggeration and amplification of overindulgence and the dangers of all of that. I thought it was really cool, the Donovan versus Alice vocals on there. The story is they were recording in London, as I mentioned, part of this album, and Donovan was in the same studio next door, and they asked him to come over and do this, and he did it. I found that in a couple of places. I don't know if that's the official story, but that's what I found in a couple of places. The more the song went on, the more I liked it. It's only 3 minutes, 42 seconds, but it's very complex arrangement-wise and producing-wise, so I thought it was really good. Also on this great guitar work, Steve Hunter, Dick Wagner on lead guitar, and Michael Bruce was just playing rhythm. This went to 30 in Germany, 57 in the US. And now you see it below. We'll finish off the A-side, the traditional A-side, with Unfinished Suite from Cooper, Bruce, and Smith. It's about eating too much sweets and having to go to the dentist, hence why in the beginning when I told you all the props they had, dentist drills were in there. In the middle of the song, you can hear dentist drill sounds. Do any of us really want to hear that? No, I don't. Shout out to the dentist. All right, Unfinished Suite. Some good production on there from Ezra. And the bass line really stood out at the start and then really throughout the song, a couple areas in there. The dental drill reminds me of, Ezra produced some Kiss stuff. And I just did a song battle featuring Detroit Rock City where you've got the car revving and the crash and different things. So Ezra had that, early on in there. A good song, a fun song, finishing off side one. Now we'll go to the only song I know on here. Side 2 opener, No More Mr. Nice Guy, written by Bruce Cooper, 25 in the US, 10 on the UK. And Glenn Buxton is playing the lead guitar on this one, and he's not on most of the songs. Let's get it. All right, the only song I knew on here, No More Mr. Nice Guy. Really good song. I said it was written by Michael Bruce. It's Michael Bruce and Alice Cooper, so Alice is writing it. I think from the perspective of, the ironic thing is, like, he is a nice guy. Like, he's a super nice guy if you really study Alice. But, he didn't have that rep back then. But I could see why he didn't have that rep, because he did some insane things on stage, because he knew that it would get people to talk about him and a certain generation to want to go see him. So he's an incredibly smart marketer, but really good song. A little glam rock in there, nice harmony in there. Now we're going to go to Generation Landslide, written by everyone, ought to have been named by the surviving band members and fans as the peak of the group's collective songwriting catalog. Bassist Dunaway remembers it in his 2015 book, Snakes, Guillotines, Electric Chairs, My Adventures in the Alice Cooper Group, as a highlight of the $1 Billion Babies experience. We poured on the tricky Yardbirds-esque things we've done when we were the Nas, not the Rundgren Band. I thought it was the best song on the album, that Alice's lyrics were the best ever. Later on, Bob Dylan cited them in an interview. All right, I haven't heard the song, but I did this research. Obviously, I've been looking forward to hearing it. Let's go. All right, Generation Landslide. We get the $1 Billion Babies shout out a couple times in that song. Alice is almost speaking it. The arrangement of it's really complex. I mean, it's really, really well done, put together song. It's really well done. So far, we're 7 tracks in this song. This album is very diverse music-wise, right? Arrangement-wise. So, like it. All right, next up, Bruce Cooper. Bob Ezrin wrote this song. We got Sick Things. Sick Things, not a bad song. I mean, Alice is just speaking the song. The lyrics are a little nonsensical, but it's fine. It's probably the worst song on this album, but something's got to be the worst song on this album. I mean, it's okay. Now go to the shortest song on this album. We got Mary Ann, written by Bruce and Cooper. All right, Mary Ann, just really piano, and Alice sounded pretty good, kind of out of place in this album a little bit, but I saw one critic say that this song was kind of like a creepy Barry Manilow, so if you're from this time, you're going to know what I'm talking about, but here's a fine song. Before I go on to the song you see down below, the album closer, I Love the Dead. Mary Ann is the only song in this album that's never been played live, just FYI. All right, I Love the Dead, written by Bob Ezrin, Alice Cooper, and it's about what you think about it. I told you at the start of this thing that there was necrophilia on here. I think that's what we're going to get with this song. All right, I Love the Dead, obviously designed to shock people, to offend people, the whole necrophilia, I Love the Dead, and the lyrics in there at the start. And he kind of gets into that at the start and the end of the song. But in between that, I'm telling you, man, the guitar solo on there's great, some strings, some different almost horns there at the end, and just the chorus part is really, really good. So I really enjoyed that song. I thought that song was really good. It's odd. It was meant to be odd, but once again, sophisticated production and song construction. And now we get to my favorite tracks. Honorable mention, Hello Hooray, the first track, and $1 Billion Babies. Faves are going to be No More Mr. Nice Guy, and this last song, I Love the Dead. Now we get to my overall score. I know for a lot of people, this is their most acclaimed album. Carl, the patron, who's bringing these albums every month, this whole discography of the Alice Cooper Band, says this is the magnum opus. You got to remember, it's the first time I'm hearing these, right? It's always a little strange when it's the first time you hear an album, because on repeated listens, things change. This album's very, very consistent, very good. There's not a dud on here, but I don't think there's huge standouts either. So for me, great arrangement, great instrumentation. I mean, you can tell this is a band firing on all cylinders. For me, I don't like it as much as I like I Love You to Death and Killer, but that's not throwing any shade at it. So I'm going to be at a 7.75 on this one. Let me know what you think down below, guys. We got one album left, but it's not real well acclaimed. So let me know what your favorite Alice Cooper Band album is. I'm curious for those of you who've been Cooper fans forever. All right, thanks again to Carl for bringing this one. Until next time, guys, I will see you.